a quick background on who PWTech is. We're actually formed in December of 2006 when CBS Technologies, kind of stormwater and CSO technologies, was sold. PWTech was formed and kept a couple technologies, including the one we'll discuss today, which is the volute technology for sludge thickening and dewatering. So we'll jump right in. What is a volute press? The volute press is really a screw press with a unique design using a volute dewatering drum. This was originally developed by AMCON in Japan in association with the Japanese Water Authority to overcome some challenges that they were having, or as we like to say, a new generation of screw press, or as we dub it, screw press 2.0. So just to run through what a screw press is real quick, very simple piece of technology. It's a perforated drum of some type. It's either a mesh screen or a wedge wire or a perforated basket and a scroll that runs up through the center. Your flocculated sludge will come in at one end of it, be conveyed up by the conveyor up through the center with either tightening flights or widening shaft or some combination thereof, literally squeezing the solids and forcing the liquid out through whatever the opening is in the basket, either the wedge wire or the perforations. And there's a lot of them out there. They've been in the industry for quite a number of years now and have worked very well. But we have inclined ones and flat ones and vertical ones and wedge wires and screens. So mechanically, they're very simple. For, I guess JD mentioned you have one, folks that are familiar with them, very, very minimal maintenance if they're designed properly. Very slow, easy operation. There's really nothing on a screw press that you can't fix with a good set of hand tools and a little bit of time and know-how. Very, very low power consumption, typically on the order of 5% or so of a centrifuge. Very easy to automate because they move very slowly and require so little maintenance and babysitting. They can run unattended quite well. Great health and safety benefits. Very low noise, minimal exposure to moving parts, and the moving parts that are moving are quite slow. Very low odor, can be completely contained and don't beat the sludge up too bad, so odors tend to be on the low side. Also not mentioned here is typically very low wash water consumption on the fraction of a 10th to a 20th of what a belt filter press would consume, and very easy to install. They're compact, they tend to be lighter weight, easier to move around. The problem with most of the screw presses out there is getting back to the design of the basket. Some portion of that open area is going to be clogged whenever the machine is running. So the basket has to be large enough to allow for some portion of the openings to be clogged, along with enough surface area to allow the water to escape as you compress the sludge. So typically they take quite a bit more stainless steel to manufacture, so the cost of stainless becomes an issue. They can also have capture issues, especially with secondary sludge, where they can't form a flock quite as easy and don't have centrifugal force or the tight woven of a belt to help out with that. And screw presses don't scale well because you don't have the centrifugal force or large area. Going to a bigger and bigger and bigger diameter doesn't increase the performance of a screw press in a linear fashion. So enter the volute. Again, it was developed in Japan in the mid-90s by AMCON in conjunction with the Japanese Sewer Authority. And then we entered an agreement in 2004 to be the exclusive North American distributor. July 2005, we had the first installation in Port Depot, Maryland. And this is actually a little dated. We're now well over 300 actual customers and approaching about 400 total machines installed in the US. We do have a thickening version of this, same technology, but just changed a little bit to allow for better thickening. And this number, about 4,500 installations in over 80 countries. It really is the most widely used screw press technology throughout the rest of the world, really with the exception of North America. So the dewatering drum itself is the critical difference between the volute press and any other screw press out there. Instead of being a fixed drum, fixed wedge wire, or fixed basket, we are actually a series of floating and fixed rings that an auger runs up through. But if you can see here, there's this series of fixed and floating rings. And if you look closely, the floating rings actually ride on the leading edge of the scroll that's inside. So as the scroll comes around, it actually pushes that ring, the next ring, open and allows just enough area there for filtrate, or pressate as we call it, to escape between the floating ring and fixed ring. As important as that opening is, as you can picture, the other end is actually pulled into the sludge. So the actual flow of the sludge across that interface that's pulled in is actually a natural cleaning motion, so that when the scroll comes around and pushes that part open, that area is wide open and available for dewatering.
What's the typical lifespan on those rings normally?
Yeah, most of our installations, we see somewhere between 10,000 and 15,000 hours of operation before the rings show significant wear. But we've had some industrial applications where they know it's a very gritty sludge and just know that those rings are going to have to be replaced even at about 5,000 hours. We have other really easy secondary sludges that are very thin, where we've had machines run in 20, 25, even a few coming on 30,000 hours now, and we have yet to replace the rings.
Okay.
So as you can see, as the scroll comes around and pushes the ring out, just enough for the filtrate to escape. So what that really allows, besides the cleaning action of pulling the ring in, it really makes virtually the entire surface, or the interface between every single fixed and floating ring, available open surface for dewatering. So as a result, we can have a much smaller drum to get the same throughput as other screw presses out there, resulting in a lot less stainless steel for manufacturing. So a much more compact footprint, less cost for manufacturing, lighter weight for rigging, all those types of things. But more importantly, unlike any other screw press, we don't need any way to keep that interface open. All the other screw presses out there either use a brush on the edge of the wiper, or a high pressure water system, or shims or lip seals, a lot of different ways that they attempt to keep that surface open. And that becomes a real maintenance issue in screw presses. There's either a lot of high pressure water consumption, the power that goes with it, or it's occasional removal of the scroll and changing out of the brush or the wiper that's used to keep the openings clean. That all goes away with the volute press. So because of the design, it's a much more compact and efficient screw press. And it's about half the length and half the diameter of other screw presses of the same capacity. The high open area allows for thin sludges to be dewatered directly without thickening upstream. A lot of the other equipment out there, you need a thickening step before you go into dewatering. So it's just another unit process and more equipment to maintain. We can handle feed solids as low as about 0.25%, sometimes even down to 0.1%, and be able to dewater effectively. As I mentioned earlier in the conversation, screw presses don't scale very well. Once you get into too big of a diameter of a drum, the return on investment for all that additional stainless steel just doesn't get you that much more throughput or that much more capacity. So PWTech, we've taken the approach that we really only make, say 3, we do make a very small one. So 4 drum assemblies Our largest is the 350 series, so about 35 centimeters in internal diameter. And we have found through our research and through experimentation that above that, the scaling just doesn't work. So what we've done to include additional capacity instead is deliver our machines in 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3, and 4 drum configurations. And we'll do multiples of any of those size drums to get the capacity that you need. The other thing that this allows is we can deliver machines that are expandable. This is a good picture. So this is a 353-2. So real quick, our nomenclature, the first 2 digits are the inside diameter of our drum in centimeters. The third number is the number of drums that the machine would have fully built out. And then if there's a number in parentheses, it's the number of drums that the machine is delivered with initially. So you can see in this case, it's at 353-2. This machine is capable of handling 3 of our 350 series or 35 series drums, but it was delivered initially with 2 of them, saving very significant capital cost. And then very easy to add another rotating assembly in the future as your need for capacity expands. The other thing that this configuration does for you is give you built-in redundancy. Each of these rotating assemblies operate independently. So if you were to lose one of them, the other 2 could keep right on running and you could limp along at 2/3 or 3/4, whatever percentage of drums are still in service at your facility. The spray mechanism on top here is just a simple low pressure wash water just to keep the little bit of solids that do come out with the pressate off the surface. It's much more of a housekeeping or a visual process than it is critical to the process. We've had plenty of customers run without the spray bars in operation for a number of reasons with no real effect on the process. This is an underweir, kind of a 2-tank system connected by an underweir. So the sludge and polymer injection right here into the sludge come into an atmospheric tank where it's mixed, comes under the weir into a slower flocculation tank. Kind of our models, the production ones are really the 5, 8, 12, and 15-inch, or the diameter of this scrolls, and 1 to 4 screws. So we can do from 2 to 270 gallons a minute, and solids up to about 1 1/4 tons per hour of dry solids in our largest machine. Touched on the maintenance during the beginning of this, but there's almost no maintenance on these things. But weekly, just really a check of your chemical supplies, your polymer performance. Monthly, you want to just run a quick inspection of motors and pumps, maybe run a calibration on the polymer, just check for any rags that have gotten wrapped around mixers, very simple things like this. And then as we talked about, the final set of rings right up at the end where the cake is the driest and would cause the wear, over time those rings will wear and the cake solids will start to drop off a little bit. When that's gotten to the point where it's affecting the performance enough for you, that section of rings comes off the end and a new cassette gets popped back on and you go back to operation.
We clean ours on every Friday. We drain the tank and clean the rags off the mixer arms and spray it all down. And other than that, we kind of turn it on and forget it. It's really nice.
Okay. Well, thank you. When the rings do wear and it's time to replace them, you're not dealing with individual rings and spacers. They do come off in a cassette. And in this particular size, this last section right here would be the cassette that would be changed out. Start to talk about some applications. This is actually the original dewatering machine ever built. It was actually started out as the prototype by MCON and is actually still in operation. It has been dewatering WAS on a 24/7 basis at a small plant in Japan for something like 17 years now. with occasional ring rebuild, but it's been in continuous operation at an unmanned plant, dewatering about 4 GPM of loss 24/7. Very often, as part of our scope of supply, we will include the conveyors and feed pumps and things like that. Here's an installation in Pennsylvania. It's a 301, so a small single drum unit, probably running somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 gallons a minute, just discharged directly into a small load leveling conveyor over a dumpster. So another expandable machine, discharging into a loadout conveyor and then into a second incline conveyor to go out to a dumpster arrangement. 2 303s, one operational, one standby in Ithaca, New York. This is on a water treatment plant, so this is actually on a lime sludge. 353 with a similar arrangement, just multiple drops over a dumpster to keep the load level. Outdoor installation of a 132, so only a 13 centimeter machine with 2 rotating assemblies over top of the small dumpster. This is our thickening operation. So we do make the machine in a thickening arrangement. It's just at a slightly reduced incline so that we can get more throughput to it, and slightly different spacing in the ring assembly. The technology is the same, but this allows you to thicken really thin sludge up to something still pumpable, say the 7 to 9% sludge range. And the nice thing about this technology is the thickness can be adjusted on the fly. There's no shutting the machine down and adjusting equipment to get the thickness that you want. So if you're starting to get too thick to pump into your truck, if you do thickening, this is a nice operation and a very compact footprint for a lot of throughput. We can do trailer mounted machines. Very often we'll go down the road. We have many a customer who have said, oh, we'd like to put one on trailer because we dewater at plant A most of the year, and twice a year we'll trailer it over to another plant and clean out the beds. And almost invariably, it ends up being about the same price, or sometimes even less money, to do 2 installations of smaller machines that run extended periods at each of the 2 plants. This is by far and away our most high-tech installation. This was an application where the machine was delivered, and before they could get the old machine out, and I don't know if it was the building being finished or what the reason was, but the other equipment had died completely. So they literally set it up out in the parking lot, brought some power to it, and started dewatering right there in the parking lot while they were finishing the building where the machine was going to be installed permanently. And last but not least, our pilot unit. I'm sure at least a few of you have seen this up in your neck of the woods. We have a few more that have been manufactured, so our availability for piloting is opening up a bit, and that is my presentation. Anybody else with questions?
It seems like control-wise, the boxes can be drawn kind of wherever, as far as what plant SCADA might control versus your control panel. The control and operation of these machines is incredibly simple. It's pretty much starts making cake within 30 seconds or a minute of turning it on. It may just be a slight adjustment just to get your polymer exactly where you want it, but then the machines just chug along. Really, they were designed to run completely unattended, and there's just not that many signals to and from it. Any complexity would really be around pumping systems or conveyor systems, but the machine itself is incredibly simple. I'm wondering about what's kind of the threshold for needing like a platform versus not, I guess.
Yeah, it really depends on what we need to do with the solids and where we need to go with them. This particular one, because I think we had to go through an existing opening in the building. So just a configuration, we really needed this loadout conveyor and then an incline conveyor.
Yeah.
We can take a look at your exact layout. Sometimes it makes more sense to put this down on the ground or even on a housekeeping pad and go immediately into an incline conveyor. The biggest thing that we want to watch is once you get above, don't hold me to the number, I want to say, is it 8-inch? Then we need to get into the railings and the platforms and things like that. Very often we can avoid that with our smaller machines by putting the machine just on a housekeeping platform where you can walk, one step up way out here somewhere and then walk on level ground to the machine to look at the control panel and whatnot. And then just a single simple step to be able to look into the tanks. I can show you some other arrangements. We, even for larger machines, very often will go up into an incline conveyor and then another horizontal conveyor that will load into one of two distribution conveyors that are over top of 40-foot trucks. Bigger machines, big 350 series that are doing 1,000 pounds an hour. It's nice to be able to keep loading one truck while the other one pulls out and a new one comes in.
So we run constant level when we run, and we have our pumps speed up and slow down. Is there anything, a benefit you're going to get from having the drums speed up and slow down when running that way?
Not unless there's a big change in the feed solids. Usually the tank, so you're saying your feed pump to our mixing tank changes speed to keep the tanks level?
Yeah.
Okay, that's really the cleanest and easiest way to do it. You have enough residence time between the sludge coming down through here, under the weir, and then finish flocculating here, because then it flows from here by gravity to the rotating assemblies. And then the machine actually watches the pressure on the drive. So I would think that by doing it that way, you're seeing very consistent cake solids.
Yeah, I mean, we average, right now we're having some sludge issues, but when we were able to get like 32% solids at one point, we tried to shoot for about 20, 25. But when they came in and changed, they just said something about making them rings go faster and slower and running it that way. But we had pretty good success running the way we do. I was just curious if you gained anything more by doing it that way or not.
Yeah, you might gain a little more throughput by doing it that way. But truthfully, if you're running the rings faster, it's just going to make things wear that much faster. So if you're getting the capacity you need by changing the pump speed and keeping this level, you're probably getting your best optimization.
Okay.
What are the main things to control to make, say, not thicken as much? Like if it's capable of doing 6-7%, but we only want 4, what would we change?
Okay, so for the thickener, it's a little bit different. For thickening, you would change the scroll speed a little bit. If the cake's getting a little too dry, we would just speed the scroll up and get the sludge out of the rotating assembly or out of the conveyor a little bit quicker before it had a chance to dewater any further.
So can we order the ring cassettes ourselves and put those in?
You can do that if you want. We can send them to you. When we come and do it, we normally bring a cassette and then we will take back the old ones because the fixed rings really have nowhere, or they get, pick a number, 5 times the lifespan of the moving rings. So we will actually reuse those rings to rebuild other assemblies. So you're only paying for the moving rings at the time. For us to sell a spare cassette for you to have on the shelf, if we just haven't done it, we could work out some kind of core charge where you send back the old one.
It's not rocket science. We're just trying to, everybody's trying to save a buck nowadays.
Yep, no, that's true. We can certainly talk about it and work it out. Most installations, it's so few and far, years between the change outs that plants just prefer to have our guys come in and do it. Because as you've seen, our guys can bang out a 3 or 4 drum machine in a day. Whereas you have somebody, it's because they do it, pick a number, twice a week, 3 times a week. Whereas your maintenance guys who are in a plant where normal cycle, you have a guy doing it once every 5 years or something. It's been so long since it's been on his radar, he's kind of forgotten the tips and tricks, and it takes quite a bit more time. We certainly can talk about it and come up with something
Yeah,
that
just
works
something my
great.
supervisor had asked. He's like, could you guys do it? And I'm like, yeah, we could do it. I just don't know if they would sell us the cassettes or, however it would work out. But yeah, we might talk more about that.
Yeah, yeah, and we're happy to sell you the cassettes. I just hate to sell you the whole cassette and then let perfectly good fixed rings that there's no reason to pay for them twice go unused. If we could work a way out to get those
Yeah, do a
back
core charge, send them back
yeah,
to you.
Yep.
Good to know.
If anybody has any questions about the technology, feel free to reach out to me, Paul, or Greg, or Chris. We're always available to answer questions. But otherwise, I appreciate everyone jumping on today and spending an hour with us, learning a little bit more about PWTech.